Call the meeting to order. This is the City Council meeting for Minnetrista for January 3rd, 2022. Welcome everyone and Happy New Year. First order of business is please, and I had to remind myself, turn your cell phones on silent so they don't disrupt the meeting, and then please join me for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with that, we have two council members that are not able to be with us this evening. And I'm going to start with introductions here. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor, and next to me are council members Pam Mortensen and Ann McGregor. John Chamberlain and Kathleen are not here. Our city engineer, Allison Fauski, is on the end, and then also our city clerk is Don Motzko. And then to my right, we have Mike Brony has retired, as you know, and Ali Paulfus, our Director of Administration, is sitting in tonight as our go-to person. We're going to be doing it on a rotating basis. Brian will do our next meeting, and then David Abel will do the following meeting, and we'll keep rotating until that seat is permanently filled with a new individual. Next to Allie, we have Brian Grimm, who is our Finance Director, and then on the end we have our Chief of Police, Paul Falls, and also in our audience we have David Abel, who is our Community Development Director, and our Attorney, Ron Beatty. So with that, next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I don't have any additions, staff, council. All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion.
I'll second.
So Ms. McGregor made that motion and Ms. Mortensen seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Next, we don't have special presentations. Nobody else is here under persons to be heard. So we move on to consent agenda items. They consist of A, approve our work session meeting minutes from December 6, 2021. B is approve City Council regular meeting minutes from December 6, 2021. C is approve the City Council special meeting minutes from December 20th, 2021. D is a resolution to approve claims. E is a resolution to approving the purchase of the digital fingerprint machine. F is a resolution to adopt the city general specifications and standard detail plates for street and utility construction dated January 2022. And G is a resolution authorizing execution of termination and release of petition and waiver agreements. Any that we need to remove? With that then, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mortensen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We have a short agenda, but we'll probably get through it in time for Brian, for you to get home for your daughter's birthday cake. With that, we'll move on to business items. First of all, we have our Park Commission appointments for a 3-year term. We did our interviews, except for we didn't do the interview for the park because the gentleman wasn't able to be here. But we had one applicant for 2 positions. So I think it's fair to say that we will probably reappoint Jeff Reiser to the Park Commission. Is there a motion to approve Jeff Reiser for the 3-year term to the Park Commission?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Say, we're going to go back and forth here tonight. So, Ms. Mortensen made that motion and Ms. McGregor seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Next, we'll move on to the Planning Commission appointments, and these are for 4-year terms. We had 2 applicants. We had Mr. Peter Vickery and Ms. Tricia Taylor. And again, for two seats, I think it's fair to say that they will both be appointed. And we had nice interviews with both of them, asked questions. We're looking forward to Ms. Taylor coming on board as a new member and Mr. Vickery coming back on board or staying on board with his experience. Any questions or comments? Then is there a motion to approve Peter Vickery and Tricia Taylor for the 2 open Planning Commission seats for the 4-year term?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. McGregor made that motion and Ms. Mortensen seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. Next, we'll move on to a council appointments and designations. I spoke with Ms. Ali Polfus, and I put this here because I want to make sure that everybody is okay with the designations. I know, Pam, you contacted me earlier and asked if you could make a change.
Yes, to the WCC meeting. They are held once a month. During COVID, it was different, but just due to the time that it happens, it's usually around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's just difficult for me to always be there, which I have been able to do. But I'm just wondering if there's another council member that could take that position over.
I'll take it.
You will love it. They're really a great group of people, so,
Okay.
It fits right in with the Gillespie Center.
yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I know Ms. Refkin asked to be appointed to both fire commissions. The only question I have, too, and that's fine, I think that'll be great. The other question I have is, we didn't list the fire, it's kind of an ad hoc, if you will, fire district committee. So last time the council said Ms. Refkin and I should be the representatives for those meetings. Do we need, or should we formalize that just by saying that Kathleen and I will be the formal representatives for those meetings?
I think that's fine if you want to just add
Okay.
that, yeah, or just
Oh,
make that.
Okay,
yeah.
and I know Kathleen would agree to that too, so.
She will.
Okay, so I'm just gonna add that, that Kathleen Refkin and myself, and I believe it always was our city administrator as well, so we can just put that title in there for now, and whoever takes that position will then be part of those discussions or that committee. All right, otherwise, I didn't have anything else, so,
I just have a question. With Ann taking that appointment, will there be a letter sent to WCC?
Yes, so Dawn will be sending letters to
Okay.
everybody.
I have them already, so
Yeah.
we'll
Great.
just change the names and we'll be good.
oh, I know one more thing, I'm sorry. On the list, it listed me as Kathleen and I as the representative. Kathleen is actually the representative, I'm the alternate.
Okay.
And sometimes I've gone, they always invite me, sometimes I go, but she's the actual representative,
Okay,
so,
I will change that.
yeah. Okay, other than that, I had no changes. So is there a motion then to approve those designations with those changes?
So moved.
Thank you, and
I'll second.
thank you, Ms. Mortensen, for seconding that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Next, we move on to approve our offer of employment for Renee Newman as our utility billing recycling coordinator.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council is being asked to approve a full offer of employment for Renee Newman as the utility billing and recycling coordinator, replacing Don Motzko, who was promoted to city clerk in October. Advertising began on November 2nd, and we received 5 applications for this position. Renee Newman emerged as the final candidate for this position, and the Personnel Committee met on November 30th and directed staff to move forward with the contingent offer segment of this process. Ms. Newman completed successfully a full background investigation performed by our police department. A little more about Renee. She graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree from University of Minnesota. Her career has been in the public sector, and she has been working at the U.S. Department of Agriculture as a program technician for over 10 years. So with that, we are asking for approval of the full offer of employment. We hope she starts here by February.
Questions?
No.
No? All right, then is there a motion to, so the motion would be to offer Ms. Newman offer of employment as presented in our packet.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Ms. Mortensen made that motion and Ms. McGregor seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. That'll be good to get that filled. I'm sure that Ms.
Don's
Motzko,
ready.
Don is ready, I'm sure. So with that, then we'll move on to our next item, which I believe the chief will take.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So this discussion tonight is going to be a relatively short one. It's just meant to be an update with some of the information that I've received regarding the gun range. It's by no means a comprehensive list of all the items that we discussed in the past, but just to try and keep this item from getting too cold, I'd like to just present this, and then we can have a discussion based on that, and certainly there will probably be future discussions. So with that said, you can see the slide here, hopefully you can see the numbers. I guess what's important here is I'm going to go over just a couple of slides here that break the operational costs into essentially 3 sections, and I think much of this will answer a lot of the questions that came up in past discussions. So the first one is kind of ballistic. So what I had the vendor do is essentially create a formula for the way that we think we're going to use a range when and if we ever complete this thing. And so what they did is they broke it into 2 pieces, police and public. So police, essentially we picked 10 training days a year, as well as a couple of days a month for officers to go in and practice on their own time, outside of the formal training that we do as an agency. The specific numbers aren't as important until we get to price, as they are just trying to paint a picture. So you've got the police training, and then for the point of coming up with some numbers, we used basically 2 days a week. So 6 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a weekday, which is 10 hours a week is the model that we started with to come up with these numbers. Because what we have to do is kind of paint a picture for how much time that this ventilation is going to be running, how many rounds we're going to be putting into this trap, and then essentially what does that formula look like at the end to come up with a cost for operation. So if you have any questions as I go, feel free to ask, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds here just yet at this point. The next piece is the range equipment itself. So we have discussed going with a block style trap system, essentially rather than a grand trap. So essentially each rubber block can hold about 5,000 rounds before it has to be replaced. Typically the ones in the middle of where the targets are centered on the lanes are the ones that have to be replaced the most often. Certainly you're going to get some outside of that, but especially for the public use piece. But so for the most part, the calculations came up with we would likely have to, based on the amount of time we talked about using this, both for police and public. On this, I guess you're forwarding that for me, so thank you.
You need to go back?
No, you don't have to go back, it's okay. So based on the time that we estimate we're going to use this, both for police and the public, is how we came up with how often do we think we're gonna have to replace these blocks. And that's how they came up with, we'd likely have to replace about 64 blocks a year. That's about $5,400. And then to dispose of those, they are considered a hazmat because they're full of lead. That would be an additional $4,400 per year. Again, these actual numbers aren't that important until we get to the total. Then we go to the next slide. The ventilation piece is, again, calculated on number of days, number of hours, things like that. The more you use it, the more it costs. The ventilation piece, I think it's important to point out, covers things like electricity, routine maintenance. There are filters in that system because this system is completely separate from our building. Because you can't ventilate range air into a building or vice versa. So it's a standalone system. There are filters on it that have to be periodically changed. So these costs include all of those types of things. Long story short is based on the 10 training days a year plus a couple of days per month for the police and the 10 hours a week, which is a fair amount of public use, 10 hours a week. The estimated cost to operate this range is just under $18,000. So if you increase those numbers, the number's going to go up. If you decrease it, it's going to go down. And I can go back to that in a minute. Those are just kind of some starting points that we went with to try and give you an idea. This is pretty close to the figure I had in that first PowerPoint presentation I gave a while back with a little bit more breakdown so you can understand what's included in that. With that said, the statutory requirement for publicly owned gun ranges is I've got it, it's the part that is highlighted, or I guess it's darker print, but. So basically, if we build this, we have to make it available for public education type things, twice in the spring and twice in the summer. And that would be in conjunction with the DNR, so things like youth firearm safety. There are some other things that fall into that category. We have intended all along that if we finish the range, we would do that because it was built. We have a classroom, we have an armory, we have hopefully eventually the range. So it's the ideal setup for them to use in this type of setting. The way I envision this, if we were to complete this range, wouldn't be to start with the 10 hours a week of public use, but to start with the bare minimum, what's the requirement, start with that, and then just slowly introduce some public use pieces. Maybe we do 4 hours a week on a Saturday, or 4 hours every other Saturday, something like that, to see how it goes. Some of the things that we can't control with the public use piece is if we have staff there and the system's all running and nobody shows up, or only one person shows up, that's not gonna calculate the same way as if every lane is full the entire time you're open. So there's just some variables that we can't control up front. So my recommendation would be to start with the bare minimum or what's required and then work our way up.
For the public use part.
For the public use piece, yes.
Do they prepay before, as they sign up, can they prepay to kind of lock it in?
That's a possibility, and we'll get a little bit into range fees, but that piece, I think, is more down the road when we decide what are we really looking at and what do we want to charge. So the next slide is an example of metro area only, so law enforcement / public ranges. So all three of these are dual purpose, similar to what we're looking at. All three of these are much, much larger scale than what we have. We would be the tiniest range by far of any of these. So we'll start with Plymouth Maple Grove facility. You can see that's open to the public 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Every Saturday. The Southwest Metro training facility is a little bit unique in that there's a lot of cities involved, including Airport PD, that was built from the start with that group. There might even be a new department or two that's joined in. That's an enormous facility. They have actually 2 ranges inside that building, as well as fire training towers and all kinds of other things. So, and they obviously have the most availability to the public. But they do primarily law enforcement and fire service training there. And then the Hero Range, I'm not familiar with personally, but that's Woodbury and Cottage Grove. They also have a pretty considerable amount of public use time. And you can see the range fees vary a bit there. And I didn't list public ranges that are not law enforcement related. You know, certainly your Stock and Barrel, Bill's Gun Range, those are entirely different setups because they're not intended for law enforcement. They're just public use. So it's kind of it's a very different animal. I guess the important point to point out here is that the range fees by no means cover the operational costs in any of these ranges. They don't even come close. So the concept, it really, that I think we as staff and council and the public need to understand going forward is that I don't think there is a model that we can create where we can charge a fee that's going to cover all of this operational cost. I don't think that exists. I think the focus of these, each and every one of these was built with the primary focus of public safety, supporting public safety and public safety operations, public safety training, knowing that that's vital to the operations of public safety. So that's really what their focus was. The public use piece is secondary to that. I think it makes sense to allow it because you have this beautiful facility, but realistically, regardless of what fee you charge, you're not gonna cover those operational fees. And our operational fee, while it sounds like a lot to us, about 18,000, and that is, and if we were to start on a smaller scale, it would be less than that. But I don't think we would be capable of covering that with user fees, just to be open and honest and realistic. So I think that's just a valid point to point out. And really, that's what I have for you tonight, unless you have questions. So I think we'll just have to, our next discussion is likely gonna be, how comfortable are we moving forward if we know that you're not gonna be able to cover those costs with user fees? I think one other point I should make is that we've talked a lot about partnering with other agencies to help cover those operational costs, and I think that's a great concept. I'm still very open to that. For example, we've talked specifically about Orono PD. However, if we did that, it would push that operational cost up because they're a much larger agency than us. We have 13 licensed police officers now, 14 next year. They have high 20s. So their need for range time would be greater than ours is. So we'd have to figure out a way to,
They would either pay, they would somehow financially contribute, though.
yes.
I mean, you'd have
yes.
to figure it
Likely in
out.
exchange for them being able to use the range, they would pay a portion, whatever we come up with,
Yeah.
of that operational cost. So if they use it more than we do, maybe they would cover more of that operational cost than we do. I don't know that it would necessarily be fair to say 50-50 if they're using it more than we are.
Right,
Simply because they have a much larger agency.
right,
Maybe they pay 3/4 and we pay 1/4.
right. Okay.
So eventually, if we're fortunate enough to get this project done, I think the public piece would certainly help supplement that cost, but it's not gonna cover all of it. So,
Right. So you just want to make sure that we're well aware of that, so we
Yes.
know what we're getting into before we jump in. So, but questions?
I'm really impressed with the research. I like the charts. That's very helpful. Very
Good.
good. And it's good for me because I thought the cost was gonna be a lot more.
you thought the operational cost was gonna be
Yeah, I thought it was
higher?
gonna be at least double or triple that.
Okay,
So seeing that's very helpful.
good. No, I appreciate that. I think, one thing another thing I should point out is, obviously, that's just the operational cost. That doesn't doesn't account whoever the staff person is that has to be the public piece, but that would be minimal. And it likely wouldn't be a police officer, it would be somebody part-time at a reasonable rate, but not what a police officer makes.
And that
But-
could potentially be covered by user fees from the public, potentially.
That piece, absolutely,
Right,
yes.
yes,
Yep,
right.
you're absolutely right.
So, Pam?
I agree with Ann. I think the information you gave us was very beneficial. I do like looking at, partnering up with Orono or somebody else. But yeah, I think it was very useful to get that.
So Paul, I know we've had, the crime fund saying that they're going to be raising the funds for the capital portion of it, which is fantastic. I mean, I think we would be remiss not to take advantage of that. My concern is, they talked about this a while ago, and we didn't act on it. Is that offer still available, and would they still do this?
Mayor and council, that's a great question. I have had several conversations with the treasurer of the Crime Prevention Fund, Craig Anderson, and they're certainly open to the idea. They haven't convened the board to say, okay, we really want to do this. Now we need to talk strategy, and because it's going to be a time-consuming effort.
Okay.
Fortunately, there are a number of people on that Crime Prevention Fund that are very experienced in large-scale fundraising for things like the Ridgeview Golf Tournaments
Right.
that raise lots of money in excess of what we're looking at here. So hopefully they would still be willing, but I can't give you an absolute, but I think there's interest there.
So it sounds to me like what we need to do is the council needs to pass a resolution that we're on board with this, that we understand what the operational costs are going to be, and then we're on board to give them a go-ahead and go for it and start fundraising. Is that kind of next steps kind of thing?
Ideally, yes. I think they
Okay.
would, a resolution would essentially give them
The green light,
the
yeah.
green light or the proof that you're willing to accept this fundraising gift, if you will,
Okay.
and then operate it once it's complete.
So would the council, I know we're short, but why don't we bring that back in terms of a resolution to our next council meeting so that we can get going on it. And the caveat, of course, would be they have to raise the amount. And again, because of those other, I think they were here a couple years ago, and those other individuals that said that they've done this major fundraising event things before, I'd hate to lose them. Maybe they move away or they go somewhere else. I really would like to move on this as quickly as possible. So if we bring that resolution back, next council meeting on the 18th, then Craig would be here, of course, because you're going to be gone, but he would then have that green light and could communicate that with the crime fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Or he can communicate with me and I can forward it to Craig and
Okay.
get that ball rolling. So hopefully they can have a meeting in my absence, but at least that'll get it moving.
Mr. Grimm.
I'm just, yeah, you can
I know.
tell
I know. I know you want to say something. Yeah.
A question or clarification I would have is, should that resolution state a dollar amount or 100%, or how should that be worded as far as what, I mean, it should be obviously defined and communicated to them that.
I think,
work there.
yeah, I think good point. I think the council expects that they would fundraise for the capital improvement.
Oh.
I mean, that's kind of what they had offered us, 100% of the capital improvements. So,
And
I
they're
think-
obviously aware what that cost is in that range.
and they knew
or-
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that cost is obviously, I have gotten a quote, but the more time that passes,
Right.
that may have to be adjusted. But the language in the resolution just could say something to the effect of would cover 100% of the capital cost,
Right.
regardless of what that is. So if it's 2 years from now, it might be a little higher. If they're able to raise it in 6 months, then it might be what we have already seen. So.
Okay. All right. So you've got your direction. Next one, I think, Mr. Chief, you're up again.
Oh, let's see what.
Just a days.
Oh, yes, Trista Day, I should say. So,
Yes.
Madam Mayor and Council, we've had a lot of discussion about whether or not we move the date of Trista Day. Over the past couple of years, we did not have good luck with, COVID for certain, and then some weather issues. Prior to that, we've had pretty good luck historically with just a couple of rain dates. And in talking to my staff, they feel pretty strongly that since we're not waiting for a vendor to pick a date anymore, that we probably should stick with the same May date that we have in the past for this year, 2022, simply because planning needs to start happening, and some of those vendors, the later into the summer you get, the less likely some of the other people involved are available. So if we were to switch the date, that would be something we would probably want to plan for further out than 2022.
Okay, so the date that you're recommending is what?
Is May, I'd have to look at the,
21st?
I think the 21st,
Yes,
recycle day is the 14th. I look at the calendar, so.
Okay,
so May 21st would be.
which would be Saturday, and it's the same hours, 11 to 2, is it? Or,
Yes, 11
Yeah.
to 2. Just verify that.
and then I know, Pam, you've found out that the pig races can't happen this year,
Right,
so
he has retired
Yes.
from doing the pig
Okay.
races. So,
we won't have that. Is there any other special, if you will, event or special activity that could be added? Any thoughts there?
None that come to mind at this time,
Okay.
but certainly staff I can recommend they think about something that
Yeah.
maybe we could fill in the place of the pig races with.
I know years ago they had pony rides. Is that?
They did. They had Ginger's party ponies. I don't know if she's still around, but there might be something similar
know.
that they
I
can
mean,
come up with.
Right. It would be fun. I'm just, just an extra event that the kids could enjoy, so.
Yeah, that was a very popular event,
Yeah.
and we just have to keep it on the opposite end of the helicopter.
Yeah.
We learned our lesson. Ponies don't like helicopters.
Okay. So we're good with keeping it then for the 21st?
there is just one thing I would like somebody to check on, because weather could be an issue, it has been. Is there some way that we could look at the cost of putting a big tent for all the vendors? Just because, and the tables for people to sit down and eat and so forth.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council, this is something, I know we've talked a number of times about possibly using some of the indoor space at Public Works. Logistically, I don't want to speak for Gary, I think that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about it, and it's just too much work, and then the equipment has to sit somewhere, and so the idea that they do make very large-scale tents, maybe much larger than anything we've used in the past, that would be a possibility to look into. I know it's not cheap to rent those, but I can have staff research that
Okay,
and
I would just
see
be
if that's a
curious.
possibility or not.
And you would have to make sure that if you did want to rent one, that they would come and set it up and take it down. Because I
Yes.
think our staff is going to be busy enough doing other things. So,
Yes,
I mean,
yes. The tents we rent already
Yeah.
are set up and taken away by A1 Rentals. So,
okay,
so none of our staff does that.
okay. And maybe
So it'd
they
be a
have
similar
something too,
setup.
so.
Yes, they might
Okay.
have something that.
But I think
larger.
that might be a good idea, because we have had rain events, and if it's drizzling or something, it would be good. I mean, if
Yes.
it's like storming, maybe you don't want to do it, but, yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I think too, if we did a tent, it may attract more vendors. Just because that's always been an issue
Mhm.
with a lot of vendors is, the weather.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and it's miserable if it's raining or if they have products they can't get wet and things
yeah,
like
or
that.
even wind, so.
Okay,
So
all right.
wait a second, if it is stormy and windy, would you have it another day?
Well, Paul can speak to that.
Mayor and council, typically we don't. It's a rain or shine event is how we
Oh,
advertise it
really?
because a lot of the vendors they don't give availability of second dates or anything like that. And then from a staffing perspective, that's difficult as well. So in the past, we've just had it rain or shine, it is what it is. That's how it's always been done.
So,
It doesn't mean it
yeah.
couldn't be changed, but many of the vendors that come to our side aren't available if you go later into June or July because there's so many other things going on.
Even the
They're
next
already
day
booked.
might be better though.
But
Yeah,
that's
the
a
following
Sunday
day.
then, which, yeah. Well, a lot of people, that might be a problem for some people, but the other thing, so it has rained, and if it's just a little rain or cloudy, that's not a problem. One year it was really raining, and it was miserable. And then another year we did cancel because of the threat of severe thunderstorms, so we did cancel it. So I think you're just gonna have to do rain or shine.
Seems like an awful lot of planning to just do an all or nothing kind of result.
Yeah, how else would you do it though?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because we're renting everything from the porta potties to the tents to so you're
And is
you're
all
getting
that
the
money
cost
down
for
the
one
drain?
day.
No.
What's that?
If it's canceled,
Well, typically, if we cancel it, we hope to be able to cancel it in time to not have to pay those and have them deliver them, set them up and all that.
okay,
So that's why we always make it rain or shine, because once the stuff is here and set up, we're paying
that's
for it,
it.
whether anyone shows up or not.
People are able to duck inside if it's a little rainy for a bit, they can come inside here at the police, building, so they're able to get out of the rain a little bit,
Well, and if we do the tent idea, a large tent, then I think that could also, and it wouldn't have to have all sides on it. It could maybe just have,
Right.
two sides or something like that, but where people would be able to still congregate and go and see things, maybe then that would also help solve some of that issue too.
Okay.
Right,
So-
and we also make some provisions if it rains in our building. We
Right.
our garage isn't as big a deal to clear out as Public Works
Okay.
is, so we've had some of the vendors in there. That's pretty easy to do compared to
The
next
only thing,
door.
we did that one year, a long time ago, we did the Public Works building, when it was brand new.
Brand
Yes.
new,
And
yeah.
I participated in that, and it
Yes.
was very hard to let people know to get down there.
Yeah.
To move, because there was so much action up here,
Mhm.
it was very hard to direct them down there.
Right.
Correct, it's so far apart, so
Yeah.
if we were to come up with a plan like that, I think we just have to host the entire thing over there,
Yeah, yeah.
but.
Okay. All right. So May 21st it is, 11 to 2. We'll do rain or shine. We're going to check on a huge tent. So,
The other
all
thing,
right.
Paul, with the other possibility of doing the horse rides or the pony rides, Excel Energy was our gold sponsor for the pig races. And we returned all the money for the pig races last year after it was canceled for the second year in a row. Excel Energy asked us to hold that money because it is very difficult for them to reissue it again if we decided to use it or ask them again. So we still have that money of $500 on hold. Perhaps when we're checking out the funding for the pony rides, keep that in consideration that they would be very likely to offer to support and use that money towards the riding, and we do a big sign or something for them.
Okay.
So just a thought to help with the cost.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then if we cannot come up with something such as pony rides, would they be willing to donate that money just towards the
That's
event
what I-
itself?
That's what I was.
I will ask them.
Because there's considerable
Yeah.
fees, so maybe that
Yeah.
could be helpful that
Yeah.
way.
I think if it was advertised in some way, I think they would be open to that suggestion.
Okay.
Could be the Excel Energy tent or something.
There you go. There you go. Especially if you have free beer. No, just kidding.
I like that one.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll move on to our staff reports.
I think probably the only thing just to reemphasize is our next meeting is what, the 18th, because of the Martin Luther King holiday, and I'd be planning on, or maybe the.
Yeah, we're going to do an early
There's-
start for our work session.
Yep.
So,
Oh,
so the 18th, we're going to start our work session at 4:30. Make sure we post that and make sure you put that on your calendars. The reason we're going to start early is because we will have, you will receive the videos from the finalists, candidates for our city admin position. You will have a chance to review those prior to that meeting. And then at that meeting, we will be discussing which of those semifinalists will go to be our finalists. So that's why we're going to start early. And then we have several other things on that agenda. So it's going to be a full agenda. I think we have some ordinance discussion for the sod.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I think that's it.
okay, and, oh, no, broadband,
I have that on the regular meeting.
oh, okay. So, all right, so we'll have a nice discussion for that. So it's 4:30 on the 18th, on Tuesday. Thank you for
And
that.
how soon will we get those videos?
By that prior Friday.
Okay,
So Friday the 14th, I think.
okay,
Yep, and that will come from Baker Tilly.
great.
All right, any other staff reports? Yep.
Mayor and council, I just wanted to point out that we've started something new in your packet, your informational packet. We have what we call police activity reports. So Lori, our Secretary of Staff, is going to start putting that in the packet for every meeting, just to, I guess it would be the first meeting of the month, not every meeting, because it's a
Right.
30-day total, essentially, of, just to help give you an idea of types and quantities of police activity. I realize that when you look at that report, there's a lot of funny abbreviations that we probably take for granted. So in order to make these reports available, they just run our records management system, and those are the codes. They're associated with a bunch of codes that we're required to use. But if you have any questions about abbreviations, don't hesitate to ask. You'll get used to them over time, but at first it looks kind of funny. I'd be happy to explain any of those to you if you have questions about it. But anyway, that's designed just to give you a good idea of the type and quantity of calls that we're going to, and that's on a monthly basis. So
Yeah,
Thank-
I
thank you.
liked it, and I liked the level of detail as far as the different activities that are being done.
good.
Yeah,
So it's
I-
helpful.
That's good.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
I had asked Paul to do this because I thought it would be beneficial for us to know. Because, we don't know what their daily activities are, and you kind of we go about our business and don't know. And so I thought it really would be helpful. So I asked him to do that. Thank you very much. I agree. I think this will be very helpful. So thank you. Yeah, any other staff reports? I know that David, I talked to him earlier, there will be a Park and Planning Commission meeting, and I will be at both of those in January. And I'll just kind of move on. I will also be at the Regional Council of Mayors meeting next Monday, and immediately following, there will also be a regional mayors and public safety individuals meeting. So there'll be a public safety meeting as well following that. So I'll be reporting on that. That's all I can think of right now. Anything else?
I attended the WCC holiday party on the 14th. It was at Allen Alma's, and it was very well attended, a lot of fun. And they are also starting to talk about Polar Plunge. It's going to be, again, at Surfside Park in Mound. It's January 29th at 12 o'clock, noon. Freezing for a reason. And if you need information about this to get registered, because they need participants and volunteers, it's plungemn.org. So I'm sure they'll give flyers out that we could post. This was just mine from my picture. So I attended Mike Roney's retirement party on the 15th, and we had the special meeting on the 20th. So that's it.
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Yeah, we had a nice retirement. I know we were all there, but it was a nice retirement send off for our former administrator. And with that, I think we can be adjourned if there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Mortensen made that motion and Ms. McGregor seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Obviously, no one. So motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much, and we will reconvene on Tuesday, the 18th.